T, and today I'm going to be talking about the tragic case of Annalisa Raymundo. But before I get into this video, I do want to say that this is not my idea. The whole makeup and murder was originally created by Bailey, and I've also seen Brittany doing videos on it, but I've watched basically all of their videos, and I kind of want to be part of the gang. So I decided to start making my own videos, and I don't really like talking straight into the cameras because I feel like I'm a little too awkward for that. So I do like the idea of talking about murder and true crime while I do my makeup and my hair and other things. I will be also doing like skincare. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that this was not my idea and I'm not trying to take credit for it. Today we're going to be talking about Annalisa Raymundo. She was a very beautiful, very successful 32-year-old who lived in Stamford, Connecticut. She had two parents who were both doctors with great paying jobs, and she was very close with her family. She also had a boyfriend named Nelson. Let me start my makeup. Now, she met Nelson through work at a big pharmaceutical company, but eventually she left the job to work for a competing company. Her and Nelson had been together for so long that they were basically living together. Now, the only problem with her and Nelson is that when she left the job, Nelson met another woman named Shiela. And Shiela was immediately attracted to Nelson, and she let him know that immediately also. The other problem with Nelson was that he also had an ex-girlfriend who he once lived with, and he also owned a dog with her. So after the breakup, he was still seeing her because she was taking care of the dog, and she still also had feelings for Nelson. But Nelson wasn't the only person with a past, because Annalisa also had an ex who was he would still show up to her apartment, he would show up to her job, he would call her constantly, and she broke up with him because he was just really sketchy. He was into like really kinky things, really BDSM style, and she just wasn't really effing with him, so she had to let him go. And the one thing that I really liked about Annalisa is she was very confident. She was not the type of woman to settle. She saw red flags as dead ends, and that's how you know that somebody's really confident. So she did break things off with this guy, and he didn't take it easy. He would still show up, and this was 2 months before her murder. There was also another ex that Annalisa broke up with just because she felt like she was out of his league. And like I said, she was not the type of woman to settle, so you can't blame her for that, and I loved her for that. So at this point, Nelson and his co-worker Shiela, they start sleeping together. And there's reports that Nelson's ex-girlfriend, the one that he owned the dog with, she reportedly was telling Annalisa that she was still sleeping with Nelson. So not only was he sleeping with Shiela, but he was still possibly sleeping with an ex-girlfriend. And the ex-girlfriend was letting Annalisa know about that. So like I said, Annalisa isn't the type of person to settle and just let things happen. So she was ready to end things with Nelson. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds really weird, like I'm really sick right now. But she was ready to end things with Nelson. The only problem was her sister. Her little sister's wedding was coming up. And this kind of tugged at her heart because Annalisa is 32 years old. And she wants to be married, she wants to settle down, she wants to have kids. And her little sister kind of beat her to it before her. And not only that, but she didn't want to show up to her little sister's wedding without a date. That's like, it's one thing to have your little sister married before you, but then to show up to your little sister's wedding without a man, she didn't want to have to do that. So she decided, after the wedding is over, I'm breaking things off with Nelson, it's over. And that's what she does. After the wedding, she tries to break up with Nelson, and that's when he realizes that he needs to break it up with Shiela. Like, he needs to end things with Shiela, but that does not go well because she is crazy obsessed with him. So she was just like, whatever, like, you think you're broken up with me, but we're still together. It doesn't matter what you say, we're still together. So at this point, Anna starts looking online at dating websites because she's ready to move on. Like, she realizes Nelson is not gonna propose. This relationship is kind of a waste. Like, I'm ready to move on. I want to be a wife and I want to have kids. But the only problem was that they were still living together. So mentally she was moved on, but physically they were still, living together. Unfortunately, Annalisa was never able to move on because on November 2002, she was found murdered in her own apartment. There was no forced entry, but the crime scene was extremely bloody. Some even said that it kind of looked like a slaughterhouse. Her body was found near the door. She was stabbed in the torso, neck, chest, and face. She was also beaten with a dumbbell. Investigators immediately knew that the crime was very, very, very personal. Now, the first person that shows up to Annalisa's crime scene, was no one other than Nelson himself. When police told Nelson what happened to Annalisa, he really didn't seem that shocked or that sad or even that surprised. And police were very concerned about that because that's your girlfriend that you've been living with for years. Why are you not surprised that she's been beaten and murdered to death? Now, the only problem with Nelson was that he was at work the entire day. And police looked at surveillance videos and it proved that he was at work the entire time. He, was seen on camera being at work the entire time. So they knew he had nothing to do with the murder, despite his, his behavior. So police decided to question her exes. They first started with the kinky one. But he was in Canada the whole time. There was proof, he had alibi, so he was cleared. That was over with. They also questioned the other ex that she had, the one that she felt like she was kind of too good for. She felt like he wasn't good enough for her. And he was still upset about that. He was really, really still mad about that. He had motive. He lived in her neighborhood. And so police checked him out, but he also had alibi and he was also cleared. So next, police questioned Nelson's ex-girlfriend, the one that he owned the dog with. I don't know why I keep mentioning that, but he owned a dog with her. So he was still seeing her because she was taking care of his dog. And because she was supposedly still sleeping with Nelson and she would let Annalisa know about that. So police questioned her and it was very clear to them that she had nothing to do with the murder because she was just very unaware of what happened, and she was in New Jersey the whole time. She had alibi, so she was immediately cleared. So now we're on to Shiela Davalloo. This girl is crazy. I forgot to do concealer over here. But anyways, this girl is freaking crazy, and I'm glad that I did my research on her because there are some parts that ID missed. And I love ID. But if I had not done my full research on her and I didn't get this far, I would have been like, what? Because this girl's freaking... All right, let's get into her. So Shiela and her family, they moved to the United States from the Iranian Revolution, or to escape from the violence of the Iranian Revolution. Parents were medical and health professionals who settled into New York. Shiela was a really gifted student, but she got married right out of high school. So she got married really young, but she was just following her family's tradition. She still attended college as a young newlywed. And in graduate school is when she met Paul Christos. So her and Paul Christos start having an affair, and her husband finds out. So when he finds out, he obviously gets a divorce from her. But her and Paul, they still stay together. In the year 2000, her and Paul, they end up getting married. It wasn't soon after, though, that the heat of the affair kind of went down and the relationship started getting boring. Shiela said that in an interview behind prison that she felt like her relationship with Paul felt more like roommates than lovers. So in summer 2001, only a year after her and Paul got married, Shiela meets Nelson at work and they start having an affair. So this is
Nelson.
But court documents show that Nelson had no idea that Shiela was married. Because Shiela, according to Oxygen, Shiela would cover up the affair by telling her husband Paul that she had a mentally ill brother that was coming over and that he would get upset if he knew that she was married. So Paul, her husband, would literally help her like get rid of any trace of him, any evidence of anything that he had. He would literally help her pack all that shit up and just get rid of it. And so when Nelson would come over, he just thought she was a single woman living by herself. Like, he had no idea that she was married. So a year later, when Nelson tried to break up with Shiela, she became crazy obsessed with him. And she thought that the only way to deal with that, with Nelson not breaking up with her, was to get rid of the rival, which is Annalisa. So Shiela basically decides that the best way, or the only way, to keep Nelson from leaving her is to get rid of the problem, which she thought was Annalisa. And in November 2009, she completed that exact mission. That sounded so corny. Like I said, Shiela was obsessed with Nelson, and she only wanted Nelson. So she felt like in order to be with Nelson, she needed to get rid of Annalisa, and she needed to get rid of her husband. And that's exactly what she wanted to do. So one night, she told her husband that she wanted to play a game to spice up their romance since the relationship was basically dying. So during this game, she tells her husband, well, she blindfolds him, and she like puts different objects on his chest, and he like has to guess what those objects are. And during this game, while he's blindfolded, she goes downstairs and she gets a knife, and she comes back upstairs and she stabs him. She stabs him twice in the chest. He's begging her to call 911, but she wants his ass to die. So instead, she calls Nelson, and she's like, hey, do you want to come over for dinner? I'm not even joking. She literally calls Nelson in the middle of him begging for his life. She calls Nelson, and she asks him over for dinner. After almost an hour of him begging for his life, she finally agrees to take him to the hospital. And in the hospital parking lot, she stabs him for the third time. And at this point, he starts fighting for his life, because it was at this point that he said, there was an interview where he said that at this point, he realized that she was actually trying to kill him. Because before, he had not realized that. He thought maybe it was an accident, but it wasn't until she stabbed him for the third time that she realized, all right, she's trying to kill me. So he tries to escape, and bystanders call the cops, and they finally arrest Shiela for attempted murder. Fortunately, Nelson did survive, but he did have to go through surgery. He did end up surviving. And after that, they went to Nelson because they realized that in the middle of trying to kill her husband, she kept calling Nelson, and they wanted to know why was she calling this man when she was trying to kill her husband. I could have done my makeup like this the whole time. Wow. It's alright. It's all fucking right. So I did the rest of my makeup off camera. Well, my lashes and my lipstick. But in 2004, Shiela was sentenced to 25 years without parole in New York for attempted murder of Paul. But after the 25 years are up, she will be transferred to Connecticut for the murder of Annalise, and she will serve another 50 years on top of the 25 for Annalise's murder. Pretty much the end of today's story. It's pretty tragic, and it happened kind of close to home. I don't live in Connecticut, but I do live pretty close to Connecticut, and I've been to Connecticut many times, so it's just sad. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoy this video. This is my first sit down talk to talk video, so I'm still kind of getting used to that. I'm sorry if my voice sounds weird, sorry if you hear things in the background. I still have to get used to kind of talking one-on-one to the camera and not looking down on my notes and actually looking into the viewfinder and things like that. And there's a lot of things that I still have to try to figure out, but hope you guys still enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.